Welcome back to the Endurance Podcast. This is our Yorkshire chapter. We're talking to some fantastic personalities from Yorkshire today. I'm Martin Mansell. This, as you almost definitely know, is Mark Beaumont.
Yeah.
We're here at Blackhall Farm, just somewhere between Wakefield and Leeds. And in the hot seat coming up next, it's my favourite 6'6", long-haired rugby league legend, Eorl Crabtree.
Thank you. I didn't know where you were going with that, to be honest with you, but I'll take it. Thank you.
So welcome, Eorl, to the podcast. Brilliant having you here.
I think just to give some context to where we are, we always film the Endurance Podcast live. So we're either at a show in front of a live audience, or we come to a beautiful location like this. This is sort of on your home patch, Martin, and we're also a week ahead of your epic race around England. So these conversations are hopefully a bit of inspiration and information ahead of your biggest sporting challenge of your life, I would say.
Yeah, sure, certainly will be. Fingers crossed.
And hopefully by capturing these conversations live, it's for us a hell of a lot more interesting than meeting online. We've had the opportunity to catch up before. Al, you were brilliant at supporting the charity event that Martin led last year from Leeds to Nice. You actually got on your bike and rode that first section. What time did we meet? In the middle of the night, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was early doors, wasn't it? And I think I only did about 30 miles or something like that, maybe a bit less on the way out there, and absolutely loved just joining on. And I probably turned around a little bit later than I should have done, because that ride back was a lot harder. I didn't realise.
Yeah,
I felt it was a bit easier.
It's
I realised
marginally
it was
downhill all the
it was
way,
downhill.
Yeah.
So I made a bit of a mistake with that one, but really enjoyed just jumping on board with you guys, and it's inspirational what you're doing, raising the money that you are doing as well, and just to play a small part, and that was an absolute pleasure.
You played a big part.
Yeah, no, you were amazing last year, and you said from the start your motivation was to support these amazing charities. So before we get stuck into your conversation, Martin, maybe just highlight to the viewers and listeners the charities you're riding for this summer.
Oh, so this summer we made a switch, mixed it up a little bit, and we're supporting, myself and the support team are supporting the Yorkshire Children's Charity, who are doing some amazing work for underprivileged, disadvantaged children in the region, and also the Burrows Centre for MND,
Right.
which is obviously motor neurons disease research support, help for the families of people suffering with it.
Good on you, mate. Good on you. Right, well, let's get stuck into the conversation.
So, obviously one of our local legends, one of our really strong local legends from Huddersfield. We've had a good contingent from Leeds, so it's now good to go somewhere else in the same region of West Yorkshire. So you played for the Giants, you played for England, and now you're a managing director. So can you talk us a little bit about the timeline and the transition from a player to a businessman?
Yeah, and I still don't quite consider myself a businessman in that sense, but I know that from being a young lad coming through, I had an interest in business. I always had done, fascinated with how businesses are run, and also rugby clubs especially. So I, to try and keep it as short as possible in that sense, I was very lucky that I played amateur in Huddersfield at Underbank Rangers, which is top of home turf, which is essentially, it's got its own microclimate. It's while in summer it's bleak, and in winter it's not even worth thinking about. It is a pretty tough and horrible place to go to, but that's where I fell in love with the game of rugby league. Rugby league, born in Huddersfield, of course, at the George Hotel, and that's correct. And I was very lucky that I managed to play for the birthplace of the sport. And signed on my 17th birthday, made my debut at 18 years old down in London in 2001. I played a handful of games when the team got relegated, and then the year after we was down a division, and they put me in the centres, and I played 20 odd games that season, scored 25 tries. My winger on the Effin O'Hare, he was the top try scorer in the league, so I give him a lot of assists. And we got promoted, unbeaten. A little bit like London are actually doing in the Championship this year as well, which is a bit disappointing for me, because we drew one game. It looks like at the moment they'll probably win everything. So they'll be hopefully back in Super League, which is great. But from that point on, that's where my career took off. We got promoted back into Super League, got myself another contract. I was only 21, 22, playing against the likes of Bradford Bulls in the early noughties. And if there's any sort of rugby league fans watching this, they'll know that team with the likes of Joe Vangenaar, and Jamie Peacock and Robbie Hunter-Paul, Leon Price, Paul Deakin, Michael Withers, and then the two legends on the wings who were bigger than anyone else on the field, which was the Volcano, Leslie Vinacolo and Tavita Vicona. No matter where you went, you were going to get bashed about. And I saw it as a privilege to be able to walk out against them, although a little bit intimidating at the same time. I was a young lad in a man's world, but I managed to get through it and play a few more games and keep building my own repertoire until I physically developed. I'm 6'6", but it took a while to get the strength, and it was tough for me at times, and not playing sailing at all. Couple of occasions where I questioned myself as a person, as a player, and whether I could make it to the top level. Fortunately, I had a couple of good coaches, one especially in Nathan Brown, who showed a lot of faith in me and taught me a lot. And one of the things he actually said to me, which it stuck with me, is he sat me down and he said, what's your strengths and what are your weaknesses? So my strengths, pretty big guy, good offload, good footwork for a big guy, pretty quick. Weaknesses, slow off the ground. It's a long way down, it's a long way back up for someone my size. Says, right, brilliant, we'll focus on your strengths, work on your weaknesses. And in that moment, he had me straight away. Put his arm around my shoulder, said, we'll work together. Created drills for me to improve me as a player. And it worked. I'd run through a brick wall for that guy. Like, genuinely, I love the guy.
Words matter. And you said focus on your strength and work on your weaknesses. So this isn't just focus on your weaknesses so they're no longer your weaknesses, but actually make sure that your strengths remain your superpowers. Don't forget to work on the bits you're good at. I think is that what you're trying to say? Because that's fundamentally important, and that's often missed with athletes, because it's like, well, I'll work on the bit that I'm not good at.
Yep. I think when you get to certain levels in sports, and I found this with my own career, you get told, you're not good at this, you're not good at that.
Yeah.
But you forget what got you to there in the first place, and it's your strengths.
Yep.
And that's what I had with a few previous coaches tell me where I was going wrong. Whereas this coach was like, totally different.
Love it.
We're going to focus on them strengths. And he promoted my offload, for instance, and bouncing people off. And we set up different drills to perfect that. And at the same time, at the back end of the sessions, I was doing fitness sessions. And it wasn't to punish me. It was to make me better, to make me quicker, to make me fitter. And naturally, over time, I became quicker. I became fitter. I played more consistent, and I was doing things that no other player was doing, which was promoting the offload, which was focusing on probably my strength, my biggest strength. Fortunately for me, later on I got selected for England. I consistently played for the Giants and made the starting team as a prop forward. And I went on to play for 16 years, 420 odd games and 18 times for my country. And it took not one person, because there's a few people instrumental in my career, but that moment stands out for me as one of those moments where someone showed faith in me, and that for me has stuck with me in how I behave and my own values, and looking at people in a different way where you look at what they're good at and not just what they're weak at all the time.
Love that. I'm going to take that back into a business I'm working on at the moment, so that's I like that.
You're welcome.
You can invoice me later. Right, over to you, Martin.
Yeah, moving on to England then. So three tries scored for England.
Yeah.
How proud were those moments?
And do you know what? They all blur into one sometimes. But what I can tell you is, like, there's some standout moments, and it's like life. You know, you remember certain aspects of your whole life, don't you? And it only goes back so far. It's the same when you play 400 games. They all just blur into one. Sometimes a bit confusing. But to be able to walk out in an England shirt and represent my country, and very patriotic in that way, and I saw that as the pinnacle, and that's what I always wanted to do. And I got a tattoo when I was 15 years old, which shouldn't have done, and it was the Great British Lion on the kit, and it was a reminder then that's how focused I was, although I shouldn't have done it, but that was my drive, that was my goal, that was my vision, and it stuck with me. Never played for Great Britain because they dissolved, typically, as in they didn't carry on, but I played for England, which was the elite team. And walked out against the Aussies at Wigan. I played in 2 Four Nations, so I played in Wellington, Auckland, Brisbane, Sydney against the Aussies and Kiwis respectively. Played against the Kiwis at Huddersfield, and I think that for me was a standout game. I walked out at Huddersfield, which was my home ground, And it was a semi-final against the All Blacks, and they did the haka right in front of us.
Brilliant.
And mate, they are
What was that like?
staring you down right in your face, tongues out there, they're gunning for you, and we're off to war. We beat them, I think it was 24-12. It was a really good result, but I was having a bit of a set-to with their forward, their prop forward, who was trying to intimidate me, and I'm not the most intimidating. I'd rather, what I mean by that is, I'm not about words.
Are you kidding me?
I'm about elbows and knees and running as hard as I can.
That'd be pretty damn scary.
Yeah.
I won't be saying much, but you'd hear me coming. And we won. And I was very proud because I walked out in front of my home crowd, my home stadium. You know, this is where I'm from. And that for me was probably the pinnacle of my career, along with other games for Huddersfield, for instance, when we got promoted. Played in 2 Challenge Cup finals. Unfortunately, lost both of them. One against St Helens at Twickenham in 2006, and then another one in 2009 against Warrington. And we played in front of 78,000 people. And to do that is just it's just utterly incredible.
Talk to me about that sort of crowd interaction, because you know you train with your team, you train in the gym, you train in the park, but then the big moments come. And you might have imagined that 10,000 times, but then the emotions are very different because you've got that collective expectation of 78,000 people. How aware are you of that as a young athlete? How aware are you of that as a coach on behalf of your players? How much does that help you?
I think for individuals, it's totally different because we all react to certain situations totally different, and it depends on what you've been through probably in your life and where you've been as a player, as a young lad going into, play at Wembley in front of that many people. I wasn't sure how to react to it, and I remember looking back and some of the coaches saying, almost like to ignore it, like it's not there, it's not happening, forget about it.
Yeah.
You need to focus on your job. And for me, they were totally wrong. I just disagree with that massively, because I think if you embrace and accept and buy into the occasion, I think you lose those nerves. And for me personally, I'm a very relaxed character, chilled out. I want to enjoy every moment, and I'd encourage any player or any person that gets into that environment not to avoid it, not to steer away from it, accept it and embrace it, because I honestly believe you'll get the most out of it. I played at my best when I was being harassed by the fans and chanted at and abused, and I'm giving them back a little bit. And the chant that I got for many years was, "You're just a fat Robbie Savage." But I loved it. That's what I wanted. I wanted the fans to give me grief, and just the fact I'm doing that with my belly when I walk back, when I've scored and stuff like that. And I scored a few more tries for the Giants, and I had a load of banter with the fans. But I think if you went anywhere and any rugby fans did know me, they'd probably say pretty much nice things about me, because I've always spoken to people, always been polite and accepting, and speak to anybody. I've got time for absolutely anybody, because I find people fascinating.
Yeah.
But I love getting abuse. That was the best thing for me. That spurred me on, not as a I'll show you, but just as a little bit of, I got you there.
Yeah, and you're sort of killing them with kindness.
Yeah.
You're smiling back. That's great.
Yeah, I love that.
Love that. So that means, the metaphor for you is, when you're stuck in a storm in a few weeks' time, and all hell's breaking loose, it's your
love it.
It's your ability to have a wry smile and go, "Come on, then, is that the best you've got?
No,
is
I like
that the best you've got?"
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's a really good way of looking at it. Yeah, because all through the podcast, we've done a few podcasts this morning, and I've been talking about my ride, which I start next week, 2,000 miles around England. And my biggest fear, I've said every time, is the weather. The rain, strong headwinds, storms. That's going to make or break. If it's like this and it's low wind and sunny, it's going to be beautiful, and I'm going to really enjoy it, I think. So every time it's come around, I've been saying the weather's going to make or break it. So that analogy is just, if that does happen, which the forecast currently is pointing to, it's not going to, but it's England, isn't it?
There's not many times I want you to think about me, but in that moment it's
But
okay.
in that moment, I'm going to think about
me.
it. Yeah.
Are you going to get Matt
Yeah.
to put that on a cue card?
Yeah.
When all hell's breaking, is that the best you've got?
Yeah. Yeah.
Love it. The fantastic chronology so far. We've kind of got up to the point that you're then managing teams and then setting into the business side of it. Fascinated to continue that story.
Yeah, so the latter end of my career, as you do, you get to a point where you are institutionalised. I was at the Giants for such a long time as a professional athlete, day in, day out. I became so used to just this way of living, this way of life. I could tell you exactly what we were doing on a daily basis, where we would be trained, what time I needed to be there, and you don't really see other aspects of it. But I'm very used and aware of myself, and I knew what I needed to do, and I needed to get out there. So I've always spoke to people, I've always networked, and I don't mean that in the traditional sense. You go to a networking group and you just bump into a lot of people and say, hi, this is who I am. I've just become friendly with people and learnt about them, the businesses, the jobs, and what they do, what spurs them on, their motivations. And over time, I became quite well connected in the sense that I just had a lot of people that I could call on for either support, advice, or just learn from them. So at the back end of my career, I'd already started making these networks. And then unfortunately, I broke my ribs in the middle eights against London, ironically. And that was my last ever game, which was bookended quite well. Debut against London, my final game against London. I had a year left on my contract, and the coach dragged me into the office a couple of days later with broken ribs and said, I don't see in the salary cap for next year, which is the issue of a salary cap sport. So he said, you need to work out what you need to do, go and speak to the MD and sort something out. So I had the option of being paid out gradually and being given a job, or go on loan for a year and still get paid, or something else. And I decided, because I needed to look at my future, to take a payout gradually over 3 years, but be given a job in the back room as something. So they created a role for me, which was very kind, but they didn't have one initially, as club ambassador. I went into schools, I opened fetes and shops, I did a bit of coaching, I worked in the club shop, the ticket office. And at the time I hated it, if I'm being honest with you. I was struggling with a transition. But looking back, I think it gave me an appreciation of how the business was run.
Yeah.
All the bits in the background that goes on that you're not aware of.
Yeah.
I know that wasn't deliberate for me, but that's what I learned. And I thought, now looking back again, is what a great opportunity that was, is to understand people's roles and their thoughts and opinions on how it works. And after maybe about a year or two of doing that, where I couldn't really find my place, and I had a good friend of mine who is now my boss, essentially, and the owner of Midlands Hurricanes, where I work. He wanted to do some sponsorship at the Giants, so I got all the information, and he was my first ever shirt sponsor. He led me on to someone else who became the next shirt sponsor. I picked up a couple more, box holders, static boards, LEDs. I was now becoming a bit of a commercial sales person. And I felt, for me, I got a bit of reward from that, because I was giving something back, or bringing money back into the club, where essentially, as a player, I took money away. So I was very proud, and to see these businesses on the shirts, I got a buzz out of that as well. And I realised quite quickly that's the direction that I wanted to go in. And eventually, because I was doing okay, the club said, stop doing everything else. You are club ambassador, but you focus on this, which gave me flexibility, which was really good. After a while, it worked quite well, but I started to want to do more. I wanted to improve. I went to university and did a Help to Grow course, which was about business and leadership. I finished that, completed that, went on to do a level 7 in senior leadership, and I qualified that with that now. I have a qualification which gives me a chartered manager status as well, which is great. I start a MSc in business strategy, which is just a top up, 6,500 words, which isn't a lot actually when you've studied. So I'm looking forward to doing that in January, which is 6 months, and that will give me my master's in business strategy. And I was looking to grow and develop, and I wanted to be commercial manager, and I want to go beyond that. But I felt there was a lack of opportunity to be able to do that. There wasn't a natural path or progression, and I didn't get that much feedback where I thought there would be or ever would be. So I decided that I would continue with my studies and see where it went. And then Big Red, who was my first ever sponsor, sat me down for a coffee, asked me if I would like to do some stuff with the Midlands Hurricanes. I said yes. A couple of weeks later, he asked me to be the MD of the club. From pretty much nowhere, but through a relationship, a connection, through business and friendship, that led me down a path that I wouldn't have thought I'd have gone down. And I've been there just over a year, made some huge changes at the club, moved venues, looking at doing some rebranding as well, which is exciting. A new website, new kit company, like tons of different things. And I love absolutely every moment of it. And what I do love probably more than anything is getting out of that full-time professional rugby league environment, going into a part-time environment, because it has showed me another way of doing things, and something that I probably over the last year, I've learnt more in the last year within the sport than all the years of being a player.
And if you were to have met or chatted to your 17-year-old self, what would have he said? And what would have he said about what you're doing now?
I had this conversation with, I do have a mentor, and we had this conversation. When I retired, I sat in Old Trafford looking down on the pitch. It was a grand final, and I said to myself, I'd love to organise this. I'd love to be in charge of this. That's what I said to myself. And I had no idea of how I would get there or the direction that I would need to take to get there, because I wasn't at that stage. I was club ambassador opening schools. Now, if you said at 17-year-old, I probably never thought my career would have gone into being, playing for England and things like that. Beyond that, I could never have told you what I was going to do. Maybe going to the police or something. I wouldn't have thought there were a natural path. But I got to the end of it, I sat there and thought, right, the next stage is I'd love to be in charge of this. Do I believe that I will be? Not really. I'm not entirely sure the opportunity will be there. But I'm doing everything in my power to make sure that I would be able to. Because I'm confident with what I've done in the last year or so that I can go on to bigger and better things. And I'm hoping it's with my expansion team, Midlands Hurricanes in Birmingham, because we're doing some great stuff. But I'm trying to educate myself enough to be able to do more. And hopefully the Hurricanes get there. I'm not sure whether it'll be in rugby league or a different sport or a different business, but I'm preparing myself for the future. So it's quite funny, as you said, you look at yourself as a 17-year-old or a 34-year-old that's just retired. I'm looking at myself now as a 43-year-old, and I'm excited about the path. I'm excited about the future. I have no idea where it's going to lead, but I think it's going to be positive.
Sounds like it. Sounds amazing. Like what a journey. And massive respect to you for coming from being a player and working up through all those qualifications and getting a master's, or almost getting a master's. Just about. It's
just a top up.
Yeah,
it's
top
nice. I already know exactly what I'm doing. So
yeah,
I'm excited about that.
So moving into the Midlands Hurricanes then, and with part-time players from like full-time in Giants, what's the biggest difference? What's like the mentality? What's the behaviour? What's the biggest difference, and how is it?
It's hard to put a finger on it exactly, but I would say the difference is that all these players come from different backgrounds. They all work different jobs during the day.
Yeah.
I spoke before, we've got teachers, we've got carers, we've got plumbers, scaffolder, who's, the fantastic people, but all very, very different characters. You bring all those together, and you've got to have an understanding why they're there. And I think this is important, not only in sports, but in business, is understanding the people that you work with, because we're all different. And it's something I feel like I'm quite good at, but it's because I genuinely care about people. I like to understand who they are, what they are, the families, and what they're up to. And we invite them, they come down to games, and I see the mums and dads, and I get on with them all great, because I think that's really important. I try not to separate everybody. And we have a culture at the club which is one that is, we're all together, we're all in. And even so at Avery Fields, we have one lounge. And the one lounge is where all the directors are. It's where all the players are. It's where all the family is and the friends are. We are all together. We're even dog friendly. People can bring the dogs, so they're not leaving them at home. And that's the culture I want, because I think, especially when you're part-time, these lads especially, they have tough days at work, like anybody else. They have lives where they've got children, and they've got their other halves at home. And I think it's important that when they come to the Midlands Hurricanes, they come to training, it's not to get away, but it's just somewhere that they can come and just be themselves, enjoy themselves, be open. Something we talked about before, I believe in psychological safety. Again, through my studies, and making sure that people feel valued, they feel heard, they're allowed an opinion, they're entitled to have an opinion, and they can question things as well without having what we say is having your legs blown off. And I think that, especially in business as well, is massively important, because we've got everyone on side, the same vision, the same goals, all striving for the same things, going in the same direction. I think it makes you a lot stronger. You talk about looking after each other, having each other's backs. Rugby league, you need to have each other's back. Someone makes a mistake, someone needs to be on the inside clearing up. Now, if you don't have that respect and those levels of respect, and you don't have a good culture, I think sometimes they're just a little bit off the pace. And it's just important that we have a great place where people want to come to. And we are a stepping stone for some players. We've got a player going to Super League next season, which is exciting, and I'm gutted to be losing him because he's a great bloke. And that's what we have at the club, is good people.
And how does that behaviour and mentality that you've built within Hurricanes, that you describe really nicely, how does that compare to Giants or a full-time team, or is it the same kind of culture? Is this something you've really developed that's different in the part-time culture to the full-time culture?
I think it's different in the part-time culture. I would say that the coaches that are involved are massively instrumental to how the culture develops. And I've been in Super League environments, full-time environments, and you scrutinise a lot more.
Right.
And we were talking about it before, actually, about the pressure levels of the different levels of the board and your coaches and your owner and the MDs and everybody else that's associated. Ours is a lot of tighter group. And I'm there every week. I see the lads train. I'll see how they're doing and, see the smiles on their face. And one thing I would say is every player that walks through the door into our gym shakes everybody else's hand. And there's just something about that. A greeting, just walking in. And that's every player, every staff member, all walk in and shake each other's hand. And I've never seen that before. Now, I know in other full-time environments, you're so used to each other on a daily basis.
You don't do that.
You don't do that. You don't spend time together.
I wonder if it's also because you've come from the professional game where it's not just your job, but it's your identity. I am a rugby player. My identity, my salary, my public profile is all tied up in my job. Whereas for the players you're now working with, clearly rugby is a passion, otherwise they wouldn't do it. They don't have to do it. They earn something, it's a nice top up, but ultimately there's easier ways to make money. And for them, this is something they're passionate about, but their identity and how their partners and families see them is probably not as a amateur rugby player. It's as whatever that day job is that they're picking themselves up from and then coming and training with you. And I wonder if that really affects the fact that you're sort of bringing together a much broader mixing pot of backgrounds and interests and ultimately how they see themselves. Because if you've got the intensity of being a professional, that is who you are. That's all you know. Your salary and your identity and your livelihood depends on that. Now, I'm not sort of pitting one against the other, but I am wondering how you take the best of both. So you sort of take that broader experience, that broader sort of sense of identity from the amateur game into the professional game, and actually take the pressure off some of these young guys and girls who at the age of 17, 18, 19 think that my life depends on this. Well, actually, life can be anything. And if, one door closes, others will open. And actually, professional sport, whilst an amazing opportunity, can be incredibly scary for young people if that is also tied up with their sense of self-worth and identity.
I massively agree with that, because I think as I grew up as a player, I wasn't sure of my identity as a person, because it was almost defined that I should be something that I wasn't. And I really struggle with that. So I'm not naturally an aggressive person. I'm not nasty. I'm just genuinely just a kind, soft person. And everyone would probably tell you, like, I've always been called, if I had a book, it'd be called Too Soft, because that's all I've ever been told as a player coming through, but as a young lad. And I bought into that, as in people telling me that, I believed it. And it took me a long time to sort of realise my own identity, which is far from soft. I'm not too soft in the slightest. And I'm actually quite like when I'm playing to hurt people, but it's different being off the field. You cross the white line onto the field, you can change. And as a coach told me, you can't just do that. What a load of nonsense, you can. And it took me a long time, and I started to play my best rugby league when I understood who I was as a person, not trying to pretend to be something else. So it became my identity, even though I had to force it into a box of what I had to be, what was the expectation of me. And that, I would say, probably comes from the people around me, whether it be coaching staff, players, the peers, your mentors and things like that, especially coaches. They play such a massive part of your career. They can make you or break you. And I've seen players being broken, including myself, by coaches because they didn't fit in, and they weren't what they deem as good enough And what they do is punish them and try and make them tougher by treating them bad. And that's where this sort of amateur psychology comes into it, where they play God, if you know what I mean, which makes it very difficult. I think the world is changing, and I've seen it myself. Players come in now, we have welfare managers, they have better opportunities to be educated, and there's plenty of opportunity for players, but I still don't think they quite grasp it. Once you're in there, you think that's all you're going to do forever, and it comes to you eventually. It does get there, and as I know, I'm 10 years retired. I never thought it'd end, and it did abruptly. And then you work for another 30 years after. It's a long time of work. Your career's only 10, 15 years. You got 30 years of work after this. No one sort of tells you that part when you're starting. So not get lost in that sort of egotistical world of being a Super League rugby player, but actually looking at your future is massively important. It doesn't define your identity and who you are. And I think that's something that I don't struggle with as such. But you get pigeonholed as well. I played for Huddersfield for 15 years. I'm trying to make it now in a leadership role, but you are always defined as that Huddersfield rugby player. And that's tough to get away from as well. So it actually bodes well not to be that as your identity.
There's worse things to be known for.
Yeah.
Commonly, when people talk about you, it does get mentioned about your uncle. Big Daddy. So I got to ask what. So Mark actually this morning said.
You saying you're not a fighter?
Mark this morning actually said to me, "Who's Big Daddy?" Because I put in some notes last night to explain. Well, there's Big Daddy, there's Giant Haystacks. They used to fight each other, and it was really fun in the 80s.
Keep in mind I was homeschooled and didn't have a television.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's fair enough. So what was that like? Did you know him closely? Was he?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So they lived in Halifax, which was not far from obviously Huddersfield, over the hill. And Big Daddy, to give it a little bit more context, was a British wrestling icon.
Yeah.
A wrestler in the sort of, say, late 60s, 70s, 80s. And passed away sadly in his sort of, I feel like 67, I think he was. So he was a little bit old, but he was still wrestling just before that.
Yeah.
I think people didn't realise how old he was. And again, for more context, he did fight on TV, ITV, World of Sport, every Saturday afternoon, and there'd be some, and no doubt there'd be some wrestling fans, with Dickie Davis. So he was hosting it, and then he did get Kendo Nagasaki and obviously Giant Haystacks, and the list obviously goes on and on.
I used to love it.
But they had 10 million viewers a week.
Really?
Oh, it was big. Football wasn't big then. Not on TV. Wrestling was the programme. Bigger than Coronation Street and everything else. There's only a few channels back then. Yeah. This was the sport on Saturday afternoon that everybody watched. And you got the grandmas jumping up onto the side of the ring with the handbags trying to hit the fighters. But the beauty of it was, for me, is that he wasn't just the wrestler who was my uncle, but my other uncles ran British wrestling. So Max and Brian, promoter and referee respectively, my family ran British wrestling, which upset quite a lot of people because they felt it was not corrupt as such, but it was dictated to by the Crabtree family, which it was to a certain degree. And that's why Big Daddy became the legend he was and the most famous probably wrestler with Giant Haystacks.
You've still got to be able to hold your own. There's genes, there's talent, there's character, there's a lot of other stuff. It can't just be who your family is.
Yeah, so I mean, they started to run it and got the rights to be able to run it. But what was incredible is how they ran it. And I still look back at that now and speak about it quite fondly because they were ahead of their time. So they knew exactly what they were doing. So when people were coming into the arena, for instance, and they're not big arenas, but you've got to think the demographic was different then. It wasn't kids. It was men and women of an old, slightly older, middle, 30 sort of upwards, suit and tie. It's like ladies properly immaculately dressed and stuff. The demographic was totally different. But everybody watched it with the children on Saturday afternoons. Now, when people are walking into the arena and the rings in the middle, they have a really technical fight on first, and there's a couple of people, they'd be like 30 odd minutes fighting, and it's really technical while people are coming in. Then the build up for the main fight, so they get another one in. It's a really two big guys. It's fairly quick, and they're bashing 10 bells out of each other. Then the next fight's the real big fight, which is your showstopper, your Big Daddy versus Giant Haystacks. They were building it, and even back then, they had that on the mind of how do we make this a spectacle? How do we get people engaged? How do we keep them engaged? And I think they were doing it back then, And there's a lot to learn from that as well. And fascinating.
And obviously, there's the genes that run in the family, the ability to. But then you've got to be able to perform. The other bit that really interests me is entertainment's been in your family. You grew up in the entertainment business, and being aware of that, and then becoming an athlete yourself, and being aware that ultimately, you're trying to get the best out of young people on the field, but ultimately, the people that are paying the bills are the fans. And the sponsors, and the brand equity of that, and why people care, what it's worth. So that grounding in entertainment is fascinating, because a lot of young people won't see it through that lens. They'll just see it through the lens of how good can I be as an athlete, as opposed to who's paying my salary.
Yeah.
Whereas you've got that lived experience.
Yeah, and I've been very fortunate that I went over to WWE. They asked me to go out there when I retired from rugby, which is another fairly interesting story. It was for me anyway. I just had a couple of operations, so I couldn't do too much, and I went and trained with WWE. And that was fascinating, because you talk about entertainment and how it's, I'm not saying pre-scripted, but choreographed.
Oh, it's very prescriptive.
It's incredible though, within an inch of its life. And I saw wrestlers that were choreographers, and it was interesting to see their take on things and stopping the practice shows and stuff like that. They're training before, rehearsing and things like that. And I'm thinking, this is one of the biggest entertainments in the world, and this is how they do it. And I thought there was a lot to learn, because that was for the fans. That was purely about engagement. It's getting people involved, and boxing's very good at it as well. And I know from a commentator and a reporter on boxing, when there was David Hay and Bellew fighting, the press all got pre-warned to make sure that they're filming nice and early. It's going to kick off in the press conference. And that is purely about sales, get people engaged, and they know exactly what they're doing. And I think other sports can learn from that. And I'm not saying that you have to do anything that you shouldn't, but you can create a hype off the back of it and create interest. And I do think rugby league is lacking that, especially in this sport that I've always been involved in. And the game has changed as well. And I've got a really good stat man who does our website. He's an incredible bloke. And he was telling me only last week that in rugby league versus rugby union, the Premiership versus Super League, traditionally rugby league was seen as the sport or the code that scores more tries in a game. Not anymore.
Right.
They're very, very similar. In fact, rugby union are edging it this season. That may change towards the back end of the season in rugby league, but now rugby union's caught up and they score as many tries in an average Premiership game, or maybe a little bit more, which shows you how that's changed. 20 years ago, they only scored 4 tries. Now it's 8 tries, because they're incentivised by scoring more points. Whereas rugby league have gone down the other avenue with completion rates and make sure you hold on to the ball, don't offload, don't make mistakes, because you need to win at all costs. And I think it's just fascinating how sports have adapted and changed over the years, some for the better.
Yeah, keep the game flowing.
And is the balance tipped because there's more goals being scored now on union than league, or is it tipped because the marketing and the focus of it's changed?
I think the difference is actually probably pitches, facilities, coaching, and there's a lot of rugby league coaches gone over. They use very similar shape now, block shape, which is the exact same as what rugby league's been doing for years and years. They do it now where you've got someone going through the line, someone around the back, and that's been introduced in probably the last 10, 15 years, which rugby league's been doing quite a while. And I'd say the biggest thing is bonus points.
Right.
So for a losing team, if you score 4 tries in a game, you still get a bonus point.
Okay.
That was introduced. So that gives you an incentive to score and to throw the ball around, especially if you're chasing games. So that's I think that's one of the main reasons.
Yeah, not to play too defensively.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Ultimately, the more that we can get this onto television and the more that it's watchable, I know it's on the my 10-year-old's absolutely loving her rugby, and I mean the generation that we grew up in, we're the same age. Women didn't have a pathways into rugby, not in the same way. Watching my 10-year-old daughter, meeting her heroes, because you can in the women's game, it really is very accessible, and thinking that could be me. I think it's just so powerful to get on television and social media and giving people access to the game, whether it's league or union, but then also for that next generation to really be able to see themselves in that game, see themselves in that position. And I'm very passionate about the women's game with 2 daughters and seeing that there is that pathway now.
Yeah, exactly the same. I've got a daughter, and she's 24 now, so she's sort of gone past that sort of wanting to play rugby, but there was never an opportunity when she was younger, really. But the women's game is taking off massively in rugby league. Wigan are the team to beat. They're unbelievable, but most of the Super League teams have good setups, even in Huddersfield as well. There's under 19s and also the first team of women's. But also I'd like to add in there this PDRL, which is the Physical Disability Rugby League, which has come in, Masters Rugby League, and then also, which is huge and I'm a massive fan of, Wheelchair Rugby League.
Really?
We have our own Wheelchair Rugby League team,
wow.
the Midlands Hurricanes, which we've taken on this year. They're fantastic, doing quite well in the sort of the championship themselves. And I'm looking to rehome them actually in Birmingham, closer to Wolves, because they're currently in Hereford. So we've gone for some funding, which is fantastic. So I can't wait to get them going along a little bit more. I've actually had an email earlier about doing some engagement in schools for Wheelchair Rugby League. So there's plenty of opportunities for the wider sport, not just as we've always typically seen as the men's rugby team, rugby union or rugby league. I think there's some great opportunities out there to spread the game, both codes. I mean, we've linked up, our ground is at Avery Fields with Bourneville Rugby Union Club.
Brilliant.
They've embraced us. We've gone in there and we're going to help each other. They've just been promoted, so they need support, we need support. I just don't think we're in a position anymore to have the rivalry. I don't think it's there as much as what people think it is anyway. The 2 codes are getting closer and closer together every single year as the games adapt and change, especially like scrum rules and, like I say, try scored now, pretty much the same. So it's just slightly different.
Yeah, that's interesting, yeah.
Yeah, superb. I can see in the way you think about things, Earl, you're going to be able to look back in your career in 10, 20 years' time and not just say, I was there, but that's what I did. You know, I like the fact that you're really looking ahead and going, like, what changes can we make? What changes can we make? Like, not throwing everything out, but ultimately going, how do we improve this? How do we make this, open the access? And certainly for the youngsters coming through, they don't need to all become pro players, but what will that give them in terms of confidence and life skills and friendships and community that they take into other things that they do? I'm not sure how on earth in the final chapter we're going to glean inspiration for your 2,000 miler, but is there anything to take except for suffer well?
Suffer well, and when I'm suffering, laugh in the face laugh it in the face and say, is this all you've got?
Yeah.
I'm definitely taking that away. I love that. That's like, it's just turned it all around.
Yeah.
I was worried about the weather, but now with that mentality, maybe
Well, just
maybe.
with the obviously this week, obviously it's endurance. You're talking about endurance. It's the spine race, which is on this week, and a good friend of mine, Mel Sykes, not on it this time, but there's a famous American who's become very famous. It's Andy Glaze. He's doing it, and I think he says if you're not smiling, you're doing it wrong. And I think that's a good one as a reminder when you're finding it tough. Just to smile, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
You might not be feeling it, but it's a good way to counter the demons, isn't it?
It's a reset. It's just that remind yourself that right, I'm not feeling it, but right, come on, got this. Put a smile back on your face, and it'll soon come back. That's just what we do as well, don't we?
Well, over the last year, we've only met a couple of times, but you've been a great supporter for Martin's mission and his support for local Yorkshire charity. So thank you for that. Really appreciate it.
I'm sure there'll be many years more of it as well. So I'll be every year supporting you guys.
Hopefully.
Well, he keeps saying that this is the last big epic, but
there's
no such thing
this
as the last.
This is a 10-dayer, and to get the sign off, I had to promise it was the last big one.
Right.
So, then I did promise that last year.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
And throughout the Endurance Podcast series, we've had inspiration from such a wide range of sports, athletes, community builders, and I love the fact that you've got the experience not just as a player, but as a coach and a mentor as well, and that brings another layer to the conversation.
And just a generally great bloke.
Would you go that far?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
I think so.
Right,
I think so.
We'll take it. Thank
For
you.
the minute, anyway.
I appreciate it, like genuinely. It's a pleasure to be on these and talk about it. And it actually makes me think back a little bit as well when you ask those questions. Like you start to think back a little bit more, and it's good to be reminded of your past a little bit and what you learned and the lessons and what you take forward as well. So it's always a learning curve, and I'm learning all the time. I'll make mistakes. But I'm just trying to enjoy the ride and do the best I can.
No, I can see that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
communicate
superb.
so well, and I can see you bring a ton of energy to everything you do. So, all power to you. Thanks for coming on the pod. And
Great seeing you again.
Yeah,
My pleasure. Thank
superb.
you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot for listening to the Endurance podcast. I hope you enjoyed that episode. Whether you're watching or listening, remember that we now film these. We always film them live. We've got every ambition to continue. Season 2 has been an absolute ton of fun. We've had such a broad range of experiences. And please do share this episode if you found it interesting.
And don't forget to subscribe, press the button, please share it, please make a comment and give a like depending which platform you're using, and thanks very much.